the comic was received with mixed feelings. Some of the people were thinking that we are teaching our kids in the wrong way, like we are propagating like Western culture. The word itself, feminism, was also interpreted differently with other people. Like some of them thought that maybe we are talking about the same-sex relationship, which was not. So it was received by people differently with mixed feelings.
Dressing a pant like that or a shirt is improper behavior. That's what the traditions and the cultural setting believes.
Hey, entre leaders, happy Wednesday, and welcome to the 37th episode of the Leaders Lab podcast. I want to say thank you so much for tuning into last week's episode with Mr. John Whalen and the Kesho Fund. We had a really good response, and we actually brought back the two people that he talked about from last week. And we have Oliver Kimathi and Petro Okoth with us on today. So without further ado, I am going to bring them on. But before I do, let me just actually say that if you're watching the video version on YouTube, and if there's a little bit of a lag in either of the speakers, just know that we're working with multiple networks. And we're talking about dealing with China network and also Tanzania network. So but if you're listening to this on the audio version, of course, everything's going to be nice and smooth for you. So I just wanted to give you that heads up. Okay. So without further ado, let's bring on our special guest for today. We have again, Mr. John Whalen.
Afternoon, Charity. Good morning, Petro and Oliver.
And we have Mr. Petro Okoth.
Hello, Charity. Good morning, Oliver, and good afternoon, John.
And we have Miss Oliver Kimathi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Oliver Kimathi from Tanzania, East Africa, and I'm working with the Kesho Fund. Nice to be with you today. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. So, last week we talked about how the Kesho Fund was founded in 2017, just a few short years ago, when Tanzanian teachers Oliver Kimathi and Petro Okoth met John Whalen. And so we heard John's perspective inside about how he got started in Tanzania and moves forward. And so today I kind of want to hear from Petro and Oliver's side of the story of how they particularly got started, what it was like before founding the Kesho Fund. And so I'm just going to ask them a couple of questions. First, starting with Oliver. Oliver, what was it like? Because you're the outreach coordinator, right? So what was it like for you working with different initiatives, educational initiatives prior to starting the Kesho Fund? What was that like?
Yeah, thank you, Charity. I started teaching primary school since 2002. I taught there for 6 years. And in 2018, I joined secondary school where I was teaching students aged 12 years up to 18. During my experience, I observed many things in classroom and outside the classroom. And all these issues were seen to be negative to girls. Everything girls that were doing, they found that they think that they cannot do big things and they cannot even be leaders. And from primary to secondary, I saw the same experience. So I was thinking on how I can help them and make them realize their potentialities and how important they are in the community. So I started thinking on how I can work with them. When I was in the primary school, that did not work out. But when I joined the secondary school, is when I found that I can sit with those girls and establish something that can make them think that their importance as their counterpart boys. So it was not easy. It was not easy because of some traditions. As John mentioned in the previous recording, in Tanzania we have more than 128 ethnic groups, and each one has different traditions, and some of the traditions make girls and women in general to feel inferior because how they are treated. They believe that they cannot decide for themselves. Maybe men can do better than them. And that goes from every aspect of life, in education, decision making, and also in leadership positions. So that one also made me to feel that I have to do something to help these girls to understand that traditions are there, but they have nothing to do with their intellectual setting and things like that. So they should stand up and show their abilities and how they can help the society to understand that they are also important. So when I was beginning the club, I announced we normally have this morning gatherings in our schools. So I announced that I'm going to begin girls club. Anyone who wants to join, please come and join. No one came. I announced like 6 times. No one joined the club. Then I said, what can I do? So one day I sat under the tree and took my laptop. I was just trying to watch my photos in the laptop, and some girl said, what is madam doing there? So like 3 girls came and asked, madam, what are you doing? I said, I'm just watching my pictures. Do you want to watch with me? I say, oh yes. So they sat there and we started just looking at the photos from my laptop. Then I told them, when they reached 6, I told them, now you know what? This is the Girls Empowerment Club. How do you see? They say, madam, what is that? I said we wanted to form something that will show to people that we are important and we have our dreams and we know how we can reach our dreams. How do you find it? They say, okay, fine. If you can lead us, it's okay. So that's how we began. So with those 6 students, we sat under the tree and we just chose the day where we can be sitting. By that time, we chose Thursday during the club sessions. So during club sessions, we could sit under the same tree and we discussed different issues. Really, we had no agendas. We didn't know what to talk about, but we were just there sitting and thinking how they can share the challenges they are facing through and what do they think that could be the solution of the challenges they are facing. Luckily enough, I came to realize that those girls were great, only that they missed the chance to be recognized. That's what I learned. So from them, they said that our challenges are maybe we have problems with the menstrual issues. When we are in menstruation, we don't get materials to support us. And also, we don't have time to talk to our parents. They don't sit with us and educate us about how our body are changing and how we can overcome that. So from there, we say, okay, let us find people who can help us get materials that will support us. And through the experience and the surroundings, we started thinking on how we can make the reusable sanitary pads. But before we reach that stage, I got an opportunity for girls to join girls club. So when they joined that club it was called women in STEM, women in science. So they joined that. So from there, we got one girl who was very interested and also motivated them to apply. We didn't have facilities to do that. So I was using my PC and sometimes we were going to the internet cafe where we could write the application. So one of them was accepted. So from there, the club started growing and the girls knew that, okay, with this club, we know that we can share our issues and we can do better things in the community. That's how we began our journey before we met John Whalen. Thank you.
Wow. So you already had, John, now I understand what you were saying like before when you found an initiative that was already moving, like had something going, because That's pretty powerful. I actually was going to ask, you, Oliver, how was the initial response to the club? But you kind of segued into that with the story about how the girls, the three girls came to you and were like, "What are you doing? What are you looking at?" That's really, really powerful. That's powerful. So, Petro, how do you actually get involved with this girls club? Because now you have, you have Oliver who got started, and this is before Kesho was even founded. So how did you become involved with this?
Thank you very much, Charity. But before I say how I got involved with the girls club, let me begin with a short history of where I came from.
Sure.
Yes, I was born in the northern part of Tanzania, that is close to the border with Kenya. And I was raised in an extended family where my mom took care of kids from the streets, the orphans. And she told us that when you grow up, remember that we are all human beings, despite our differences, economical status, family backgrounds, we are all human beings. So we grew up knowing that we are all human beings, and the problem that is facing one person is facing me too. And during the Christmas holidays, I think this one is celebrated all over the world or many parts of the world. So she would tell us that you should have one person at least that is disabled or is not able to get something to eat during the Christmas holidays. So find the means of helping this person and make sure that he or she gets something during the Christmas holidays. So I was raised that way. Then when I started working as secondary education in 2012, I initiated English clubs at my school where the aim, because here in Tanzania, we are learning using English. I mean, English is medium of instruction at school and medium of communication at secondary school. So I was trying to find the way of making my students active and helping them to perform well in their education. So I started English Club. And in 2015, we were called in a training at the St. Augustine University of Tanzania, where I met Oliver, who was also invited in that training. And during the training, we were elected, me as a secretary of Tanzania English Language Teachers Association, TELTA, Mwanza chapter, and Oliver was also elected as an executive member. That's where we began working. So when we discussed in our first meeting after the election, we sat and discussed the things with Oliver and all 6 members of the executive committee of TELTA Mwanza, and found out that we have the same vision and the same mission, kind of. So that's where we started working together. So we started by organizing English competitions like speaking competition, writing competitions. And so now we started sharing our ideas on how we can improve the lives of our students, how we can help to prevent the street kids. And then we said, okay, for us to help these kids, we need to have something that can help them. They can speak and they can be heard. And then instead of having many street kids in the future, we will have very few, because if we give them better education, they'll have better life. And also, like, we have early marriage, as Oliver said, and early pregnancies. So we said, if we give them education, we'll prevent these early marriages and early pregnancies. And then at the end of the day, we'll reduce the number of street kids. That's how we started working together with Oliver and got involved in her clubs and working together.
Wow. Wow. That is, now I know I just said, I just used the adjective powerful for what I just described with what Oliver was doing, but no, seriously, that is, okay, so do they have to be in school in order to be a part of the Kesho Fund, or is the Kesho Fund open to street kids as well? So I mean, I think that's very interesting. Street kids term. I think of something else when I think of street kids. So that's why I'm just asking about that.
Okay, thank you very much for that next question. Actually, we don't take kids from the streets, but what I meant when I said the street kids is that because we know that through education, we can prevent kids from going to the streets because they have something to do. Like I said before, that my mom took care of kids, orphans, and street children because they were not going to school. They had no one to help them. So my mom thought that, oh, then in order to prevent them from being at the streets, we have to house them and provide education to them. And
Okay.
yeah, so actually the Kesho Fund does not take the street kids, as I mentioned, but we work with those who are at school. Maybe
Okay.
Oliver or John, if you can add more on that.
Yeah, so I'll lend the floor to John and Oliver. So yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to add where Petro ended. It's true that Kesho Fund works with the students at school. We don't go to the street to take the students. But you asked that what kind of girls that we have. It's true that, as I said in the introduction, we are working with girls, and in some cases also we have boys in the club. Like the first club to begin, we had a number of boys who were really interested to know what we are teaching them, and when they knew that is their generation, they are going to live together, they found that this is something good. We need also to get this education because we are going to make our future together. So those are the kind of people we have in our clubs. They just join freely. We don't force them, but you just invite them, they join, and once they join, they don't want to leave. So we have really big number of girls and some boys in our clubs.
I like that. She said once they join, they don't want to leave. I love it. John, you have something you want to add to that?
Yeah, I was surprised the first time I joined one of the girls' club sessions. It was like 30% boys. There were probably 80 students there at least, and I was pretty impressed. And as far as I could tell, the boys just showed up because they felt like it and they enjoyed it, and they came back week to week. And it's not like, it's not an official club that anyone is getting credit at school for or anything. They just come because they feel like they're benefiting from it, which I was really impressed by. However, I was wondering, I think in the past you've told me about, in addition to preventing homelessness among students through education generally, I think you've talked about a pretty direct relationship between early pregnancy and access to safe sanitary products for students at school and their ability to continue education. Could you tell us a little bit about how the girls' clubs might help prevent students from dropping out or failing out?
Yes, John, I can say something about that. Okay, as you know, the challenges girls were facing at school, they lack this menstrual facilities. And for them, if they don't get these materials to support them, they won't come to school. And it is true. Students were not coming to school on menstruation day. They will stay home like 4 to 5 days every month. So if you find that number of absenteeism from school just because of menstruation in a year, we find it's quite a long time. And when they don't come to school, sometimes they get discouraged. They don't come to school for good. They stop education. And as Petra mentioned also, they will enter into early pregnancies. And we sometimes may use the term unwanted children. We say unwanted because they are not ready to become parents, yet they are forced to become parents. They cannot feed them, they cannot educate them, and they add burden to their family that already has enough number of children. So you find those children who are born in that system, they just go to the street to look for their own life on how they can live. And most of them, they'll be begging people in the street. When you just walk, they'll stop you. They ask you, can you give me something to eat? So life will be like that. And also, as we are going to talk about the other projects that we work with the Kesho Fund, you find that they also had few bathrooms that will not support them, even if for those who could get the sanitary pads, they had no good places for them to change those things. So we find that the environment was not a little bit supportive for them. So they opted to stay home until they finish that period before they come to school. And is when they can be tempted to do other things which will endanger their life and stop them from coming to school. Thank you.
Wow. So I know John mentioned that last week about them, about many of the girls missing days that they couldn't get back from school because of their menstrual cycle, and so we ended up actually talking about the pad project with the tailor. I believe her name is Adina or Dina, yeah. And so we saw what some of what the pads look like and in detail, but so. You mentioned that there were other initiatives as well, or other projects as well, and you mentioned the bathrooms, which we kind of talked about a little bit last week about the bathrooms, but I actually didn't realize that there would be issues with not having like a bathroom or at least one stall or something in a school. Is that pretty common? Is that pretty common to like not have like a bathroom there? Obviously that's why you guys are building one there, right? So but for other listeners who may be in the United States or anywhere in Europe, and we take for granted that we have bathrooms in the primary schools, like what is that like for us? Because someone may not be able to wrap their minds around that at this moment. So would either one of you could explain what's that like for the children? Like, where are the bathrooms how do they go to the bathroom, before you build these bathrooms? What is that like?
Okay, here not that we don't have bathrooms, we have them, but they are not enough. The number of our students keeps growing on every year. So you find that the bathrooms which are there, they are not enough. That's why Kesho Fund is adding the number of bathrooms to enable students to have a comfortable area for themselves. But we have them, they are not enough. We are adding them to make the number big so that students can use them comfortably. Maybe Petro, you can add more.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Oliver. I wanted to say the same. Just a few things to add is that when the schools were built, the number of students who were there were very few. But as the days goes on, as Oliver has mentioned, the number increases. That's why the bathrooms are not enough, because of the increase of the number of the students in the school.
Okay. So is it the same with supplies? Usually we hear about the increase in students, so there's a lack of supplies. But now this is my first time hearing that, there's an increase in students and there's a lack of bathroom. Like you need to create or build more bathrooms so that students will be able to go to the restroom. So is it the same for the supplies as well, like the different materials that you use? And where do you usually get your educational supplies from?
Oh, yes. It is the same with the supplies also, even the classrooms. That's why the government of Tanzania has taken initiatives to build classes. Like Oliver may talk more about that. But and the educational materials like books we usually get from the government. But due to the increase of the number of the students, the supplies are usually not enough. So that's where Kesho Fund also comes in to help with the supplies. Maybe Oliver could talk more about that as an administrator, and he has been supervising the buildings for quite some time.
Okay, Oliver, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you. Yes, I have. Just like what Petro said, the government is really trying hard to accommodate students in school, but the number of students really grows every year. Like for me in my school, every year the number of students which I receive to begin Form 1, it is not always the same. Maybe last year I received 5,508 and 7 students, and this year I received 576 students. So you can find that the number keeps on growing. This growth, because this number of the increase of students in school became vivid, especially from 2016, when the government resorted to free education, that every parent should now take the students, a kid to school. So the number has really grown big. With this increase of students in schools, you find that the infrastructure that were built there is not supporting them. We need to increase them. Like in my school, since 2019, yes, I began talking to parents on how they can increase the number of classrooms because students were crowded in the class, and they agreed. We managed to construct 12 classrooms, but in collaboration with the parents and the local government. We had 12 classrooms. So the same way, the government is also working with non-governmental organizations like Kesho Fund to make sure that they are supporting the education at school. So we use that system to collaborate with government to some extent to make the learning environment suitable and conducive to our students.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. What would you say? And this is an open question to all three of you. Okay, all three of you. What would you say if someone gave you an opportunity to have the top 3 needs of the Kesho Fund met? What would you all say they are? The top 3 needs. They say, oh, we know you have different projects, different initiatives, different desires and things that you want to do, but we're going to give you all the resources that you need for your top 3 needs. What would you all say they are? I wonder, what are the top 3 needs? Or is it supplies? Is it, more help with the pads? Is it, that's what I have a question about. And, you two are there on the ground in Tanzania. So between the two of you, what would you say are your top 3 needs? Or if you can't think of the top 3, then your absolute top need.
Yes, on my side, I would say that the top 3, the first one would be sanitary pads supply for the girls, because that is a very great challenge, and I think it is overlooked. And the second would be breakfast provision to students, because we have students that are coming from very poor background, and sometimes they go the whole day without having something in their stomach, and that one affects their learning too. And the third would be these supplies, like materials, books, because these are the core things that they need in order to do well in their education, in their final examination, because here they are judged by their final examination. So that if they don't have enough material, it will be hard for them to perform well in their final examination.
Oliver and John, do you agree with Petro? So Petro said the top 3 needs, number 1 is the pads. Number 2 is the breakfast program. And then number 3 would be the material. So what do you all agree with him on that, or Oliver?
Yes, Charity, I agree with Petro totally, especially his option number 1, the sanitary pads. As we speak here, it might sound like something very simple, but the issue is serious. It is serious in the sense that I don't know how it is connected with the traditions, where girls, the family don't have time to discuss about menstruation, and girls don't have someone to assist them. Of course, they learn from school in biology that their body will change, they'll have this kind of changes and how they can prevent them. But in practical, they don't get these facilities. And when we talk to students, they say that our parents, they say that there's something it looks like buying rubbish, buying this sanitary pads, like wasting money. Instead of buying food to feed the family, they will buy these things which are useless. They find it is useless. So girls will use old pieces of cloth to help them, to support them, and they don't have time to talk with their parents about this, and the parents, they are not, it's not a big issue for them to discuss about it. And they also, according to some traditions, that should be only for female. Even your father should not know that you are in menses. Even boys should not know that. It's so something a girl should hold it secretly. When they are in school, they also find knowledge or experience with the other girl who also is not well aware of what the body is passing through and how they can prevent themselves and how they can take it. I'm happy now because the government has also seen this. We have this menstruation day where they talk it publicly. And when you talk about that, even some say, how can you talk about this? This is femalish. We should not know about this. Why should we know? So it's something really serious. And as Petro said, we need to reach many people. Right now, Kesho Fund is working with Mwanza. But when we share our things on social media, we get a lot of calls from different parts of Tanzania and also outside of Tanzania. We had friends from Uganda. They also wanted to get the same service. So what we need this thing, the supply of these sanitary pads together with education to educate the community, the importance of this menstruation. And it's not something people call it kind of taboo. You should not mention it in front of the people. They find that is taboo word. So it's something normal and it's the process of growth for women. We need to educate the community to understand that, and also girls to take it as a pride, part of their growth. And when they reach that stage, they know that they are growing well instead of what people want them to believe that is kind of curse. There are so many
Yeah.
words associated to menstruation. So really that is number one need I find, and I think that Petro also has seen it, and we really need to reach many people. So whoever feels like supporting us, that project will touch a lot of people and will change their life for sure. Thank you.
So one thing that that really stuck out to me, or actually it's just is fascinating, is that you said as you share your posts and things on social media that you have other organizations in other countries and other African countries who are reaching out to you because they have the same need. This need for educating, the young girls, or educating, especially the community. But my question is there any type of education that the Kesho Fund also provides to the parents? Because traditionally, like you said, it may not be something of importance, but how does the Kesho Fund also help to educate the families that this is a need? Or does it seem like it's I don't want to say it's useless to try to educate the families, because it's like they're not necessarily gonna care as much about that, like you said, like as feeding the family. So is there any type of interest in parent education when it comes to this, the helping these young girls understand their bodies and take care of their bodies in a way that maybe they don't, they hadn't been able to before?
Yeah, we take different initiatives. Of course, we have not arranged something very special like a Kesho Fund, but whenever we get opportunity to meet with parents, we normally use the girls who are in the club to share their success that they have got after being in the club. Like for what we normally do when we have the graduation, when the Form 4 students are leaving the school, we have the ceremony. So the girls club, they will take the materials, the pads, and the other things that they learn from the club. They share them and show them to the parents who attend there. And of course, parents know that these girls, they are changing. But as I said, because of traditions, they find that is not something to discuss publicly. But we are now breaking that norm. We are using the girls who are in the club. They can share the success, and they share what they tell the parents that our bodies are changing, we are changing, and we need your support. We have the Kesho Fund is helping us to get this, and we need to get education from you. And also when we have parents meeting, as Petro said that one of the administrators, I get that chance to address issues, girls' issues with the parents meeting. Or that's what we do. We don't have the official training organized by the Kesho Fund to reach parents, but we use that kind of opportunities once we meet with parents.
And what is usually the response from parents as you take out the time to kind of work with them to better understand, their maturing daughters? What is usually the response? Is it positive, negative, nonchalance, or interest?
Yeah, once we do that, we get mixed responses from parents. Like one day, some students had a drama about menstruation and how a student can drop from school because of menstruation. And one parent said, "Why are you wasting our time? Should we all know all about that? Those are things for female." But many of the parents say that, okay, this is real good, and we are going to change the way we raise our children. We thought that is something very simple, but if it can help affect their schooling, we are going to change them. And really, they do change. And when we give them the sanitary pads also, we ask them to go and share with their parents. Some parents would call back and say, okay, thank you for giving this. And we will keep this for our children at least to stay for a long time. And we'll be talking to them on how they can keep them safe, that they don't get the maybe bacteria to get diseases, because if they don't use them properly, they'll also affect them to get diseases. So some parents will calls back and appreciate what we are doing. And as we talk to students, they also say that now my parent is talking to me about menstruation. And in the beginning, when I was beginning the first club, I found it the way I explained. But from there, when I I shifted to another school, I just called guests, I explained to them, and I did something like needs analysis. And most of them said that they need their parents to be talking to them about their life changes. So after talking to them and addressing to the parents meeting, the feedback from the children, they said, now our parents are treating us differently, and they appreciate what you are doing to make us to be aware of the changes our bodies are passing through. So I can see positive changes from many parents.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So it's showing that you're not only impacting the students, but also the parents as well. And so that's awesome. Petro, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Or John, anything that you wanted to add to that?
Something I'd like to touch on is a tool that we have now, one of our newer projects called the Free Online Library Project, that comes from a couple of needs that have come up here today, reaching out to parents, inquiries from folks in other countries or other regions in Tanzania asking how we can help them. And Mwanza itself is very large, especially for such a small NGO. So we try very hard to focus our direct efforts within Mwanza, knowing that we could be doing this for 50 years and still not impact, every student we'd like to be working with there. So I don't remember where we first came across it, but someone found us a PDF of this sort of puberty education book for like a health class or sex ed class or something like that was developed for free by an author named Marnie Summer, I think, as part of her dissertation in public health. And so she started this cool NGO called Grow and Know, I think. And the whole NGO takes these resource books for young girls and translates it. So ours is English on one side, Swahili on the other, and illustrates it with locally relevant illustrations. So, we talk about the importance of representation in media generally, but of course, when we're talking about puberty and personal hygiene, it's maybe then more important than ever that students looking at the resource book see an environment that resembles their environment, sees students that resemble the students they know, etc. So we wrote Ms. Sommer an email saying, is it okay if we post your PDF for free on our website? Can we distribute it for free in books? Is that all right? She responded in less than a day and said, I love it. This is what I made it for. FYI, I have one for boys as well. So here's that PDF, which we didn't realize at the time. We didn't know what her NGO was up to, really. So we put that online. We have started adding other free educational resources, educational comic books and illustrated books in some cases, other resources. There are enough of them on the web, but they're so scattered and often from highly focused organizations that having them centralized is useful. And so more and more over time, we're trying to direct folks in other areas and at our schools as well to these free downloadable PDFs. All of them are optimized for office paper so that they can be printed and photocopied cheaply anywhere. And we use those. Those were the first important educational material that we started producing in bulk for the girls' clubs specifically, but then for other events as well, and trying to give them out at schools. I don't know if students are taking those home to show their parents necessarily, but to have something printed, highly informative, in a more accessible language, especially for a lot of the older folks than English, I think lends a lot of weight and credibility to what we're talking about. And I think that it helps us, although we're still figuring out how to use the tool as effectively as possible. The idea of the online library is that it allows us to spend the small money that we have producing one item that can then be distributed for free online to as many people as we have exposure to. And for schools considering starting girls' clubs, schools with a girls' club that the administrators may not have a very positive relationship with, as Oliver mentioned, they're sometimes met with suspicion in the beginning by parents or by administrators. And so to say, here is a starting point, something to talk about, something to distribute, something to use for educating students, all at least to a certain basic level that was developed for global relevance, essentially. But then, of course, the teachers take it past that to be more locally applicable. So I would say exposure is another big need of ours at this point, and that project probably shows how money is important for producing goods. If we're talking about buying textbook for schools, there's no other way than for us to go and purchase them. They have to be the right textbooks. But a lot of the education can also happen for virtually no budget. It just needs exposure and discussion with people at schools to help them feel comfortable printing materials out. We're happy to pay for printing and photocopying, of course. That's very cheap compared to buying books, for instance. But there are a lot of ways that digital media can be leveraged in that way to have a much bigger impact than our size as an organization would normally allow in other ways.
Okay. All right. Now these resources, are they only available to, are they available to students to access? And if so, how did the students access these resources? Or is it more so for administrative teams who want to either support Kesho Fund or start their own type of, girls club or boys club?
Oh, they're free for everybody. And they really cover an interesting amount of ground. You and I had spoken personally. I know I showed you the comic book that we produced, the Kesho Fund, for a TED Talk, We Should All Be Feminists, which we really loved. We emailed Ted, and just like emailing Marnie Sommer, the author of the Growth and Changes book, Ted emailed us back and said, yeah, go for it. You're just not allowed to sell it for profit. As long as it's clear that you don't own the copyright, you're not making money, you're welcome to use the transcript for this comic. I found out later, I can't remember where we stumbled across it, but MLK Jr. actually helped edit a comic that someone wrote about him during his lifetime. And it was produced called MLK Jr. and the Montgomery Story, I think. So we found the organization that owns the copyright, again, just wrote them an email and said, we know that this is used to raise money for an important nonprofit in itself. Would you feel comfortable with us distributing it at Tanzanian schools for free? Can we have the PDF? And they said, sure, just put a link up on your website and anyone who wants it can request it by email. We'll give it for free anytime they want. And so, yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff out there to help us educate students in a way that's accessible and fun and interesting and relevant to them.
All right. So my last kind of question. Now you kind of just segued right in there, but I was going to ask about the We Should All Be Feminists project that you all had, which I believe you introduced to me in 2019. How did the students receive it? So that could be Petra, Oliver, or John. John, you could tell us how it got started. Petro, if you want, you can say, you know, how it was received in the community, or however. It's open floor.
Yeah, I'll give 20 seconds on the development, and then I'd love to hear how it's been received, because unfortunately I was already out of Tanzania by the time we finished it. But yeah. The TED Talk is amazing. It's very, very interesting. It's very informative. It includes a lot of great personal anecdotes and individual vignettes in combination with broader observations and commentary about gender relationships around the world. However, because the author is speaking in English for 20 minutes or so at a very high level using complex vocabulary, it's a lot of the students' third language. It was very, very difficult for them, even though the interest was obviously there. So we came up with the idea first of reading it, which is helpful, but again, the level of language was challenging for our students. So then we thought that maybe illustrating it would also be helpful if TED Media would be all right with us doing that. So we got, I think, 20 different artists in 10 countries around the world. We reformatted the text as a comic book layout and had them all take a page that they got to choose and interpret it however they wanted, in whatever style they wanted, as long as it was black and white, so that we could photocopy it at schools. And finished that PDF in 2019, put it on the website, sent it to schools. Oliver, Petro, how's it gone?
Yeah. How was it received, Petro? Can you tell us about that?
Sure, Charity. As it was mentioned by Oliver before, you know that the gender issue is a little bit complicated. So the comic was received with mixed feelings. Some of the people were thinking that we are teaching our kids in the wrong way, like we are propagating like Western culture. And some of them thought that this is a good book because it empowers our girls. So it was received with a mixed feelings because of complication with gender issues, as Oliver said, that men would think that there are things that they are not supposed to talk about, and women will think that men talking about these things is something that is a norm. And also the word itself, feminism, was also interpreted differently with other people. Like some of them thought that maybe we are talking about the same-sex relationship, which was not. So it was received by people differently with mixed feelings.
And I had a question because I remember when John first gave me my copy, and I was like, wow, this is really awesome. He was sharing with me that in the cover page that you all had like some type of there was like a bit of back and forth about the cover page culturally, you know, how the cultural representation of Oliver. Maybe you can talk about that, or you or Petro could talk about that. Like, what was the issue of? I thought she was beautiful on the page, and I'm just like, yeah, girl power. But you know, that's for me as someone that's really kind of modern. What was the issue with the initial cover page before it was changed? Okay, so that's what I'm gonna hold up for John. Okay, so John is muted right now. Let me unmute you, John. You have to unmute yourself, John. But this is what it looks like now. But I believe she had on pants or something, right? Like that's what it looks like now.
Yep, this is the final edit.
So that's the final edit. Now the first edit though, she had on like it was like a Black Panther's cat suit. I mean, it was to me. No, I mean, then again, you have somebody who like, my hair is always different in bright colors. So I'm seeing this cat suit, on this girl with this afro. And I mean, she's just like, and I'm like, yes, she represents power. But then, understanding that there's still this cultural difference. So, the message may not be received the same, or it could be misconstrued. So what was that experience like? And what was having to go from the original character that was on the shirt and on the book, I believe, as well, to the finished? So Oliver, John, or Petro, either of you can answer that.
Okay, I'll go first. It's true. The first version was not like that on the cover page, but we had to have several discussions, about the cultural implication when we introduce this to our community. The important thing we have to note is that people think that dressing a pant like that or a shirt is improper behavior. That's what the traditions and the cultural setting believes. Here, people would have the dresses like gowns, skirts, and they must be long. Even wearing short clothes, they say that this is improper and it's kind of Western. It is not our way. And with these girls' clubs, we're introducing things that would make girls understand themselves. And there are some traditions, like Petro said, that we have kind of division of labor, like household chores are exclusively for women. Boys, according to some traditions, are not allowed to cook, even enter in the kitchen. If you enter the kitchen, the boy would be regarded as a weak person. And those are things that some traditions work like that. But now, when we were trying to motivate girls and support them, we thought if we come with the idea that people have that this is kind of Western thing, people won't accept our clubs. They'll think that we are just going against our traditions. So we wanted to maintain our traditions, at the same time educating girls to understand who are they in the community. And we know that by using the group, this is a small group, they will become change makers from their homes and in the community in general, as they will be working and they will have different mindset, and they would understand what are their roles and what is important for them to do. And also, when we include boys in the clubs, we tell them things like cooking is something which is really a passion, something which is very important for them to cook for your own. So when we tell them when they go for higher education, they have to depend on themselves. They have to cook. So if they can't learn from the ground roots, how would they do that? So that's what we are doing, and we changed that so that we can go with what people perceive to become proper for them. Until when I think through education and through exposure and sharing ideas with many people, they will understand that dressing sometimes has nothing to do with their behavior. So that's what
Yeah.
we changed the cover page.
I want to say briefly, I realize that a lot of times when people from outside of Western countries, they see something that's inappropriate, they always say that's Western. I just it always gets me every time they say, "Oh, that's Western." I actually have many friends from Ghana, from Zimbabwe, from Cameroon, from Mali. One of my best friends for over a decade is from Nigeria. And when I hear these things, I hear that's Western. And I'm just like, I hope you mean from the United Kingdom, knowing that America is pretty terrible. But, in my hopes, I'm like, when you say that's Western and inappropriate, I'm hoping you're saying it's from, a different country. But I just think that that's really, really interesting. to hear that. And I love what you said, that the way you dressed doesn't necessarily have much to do with your behavior, but traditionally, even in my subculture, because I am Christian, so even in my subculture, we believe that the way you dress does have an influence on your behavior. So I think it's just very interesting to bring that up. Petra, did you have anything to add about that before I tell the people how to get in contact with you all?
Oh, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. I love it. He's like, oh, no, I'm okay. You guys did well. All right. Well, listen, I want to say thank you so much to John and Oliver and Petro for sharing Kesho with us. And also, if you want to be able to learn more, you know from last week that you're able to follow up with them on their website, keshofund.org. Also, if you want to participate or donate, you heard the top 3 things that they are in need of. The first one is the sanitary pads project. Also, the second thing is the breakfast, passing out breakfast. And then the third thing, I believe, was the materials, right? So if you're able to get in contact with them, you can reach them on social media at Kesho Fund. And definitely don't just say, God bless them. I hope and pray that, they receive donations and things. You can be a part of that. They're not asking for much at all. Okay. You can be a part of that. So any last things that you want to add, Petro, Oliver? I'm just so thankful that you all were able to be here with us this Wednesday morning for you in Tanzania. It's afternoon here in China, but I'm just really, really thankful that you all were able to be here with us. So is there anything else that you would like to add or say before we end our episode for the week?
Yes, thank you very much, Charity. I am glad to be part of this episode, and thank you very much to our donors all over the world. We assure you that the money that you donate is being used effectively, and we care about your devotion, we care about our students, and we care about our world. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
And thank you. And Oliver, how about you?
Thank you, Charity, for hosting us today. And we got time to share with the world how we are working with our students and how we are helping them to realize their potentialities. We know that we are working with different cultures, but what we are doing here is to help them, and we appreciate the support we are getting from different people. They don't question about these kids and how they are going to benefit back once they give us support, but we appreciate them, and we truly ask them to keep on supporting us so that we can reach many children and many youth as they need their support, really. And I have come with one of the kit here. I don't want to leave without showing it to you. When we talk of the kit, this is what we mean. We are using locally available materials. This is the material that is common in Tanzania, and it is called kitenge in Kiswahili. And here is where, when we prepare the pads, we put them in a kit like this, and we hand over to a girl. And inside the kit, as we mentioned, John showed you the pictures. I would like to show what we put inside when we mean the wings. Every kit has 2 wings like this. So this is the wing. And as you
we
can
get to see
yeah.
the wings this week.
Yes, and we have the pressing studs here, and inside in between the wing, we put a kind of a polyethylene paper to prevent the blood to pass through, and
Wow.
the parts that we talk of, they are just like this. So this
Wow.
way. Yeah, so how to fold it this way, and a girl has to insert here. The wing has things like a little pocket here. Then
Okay.
you insert the pad inside, and we'll get something like this. And use the pressing start to tight under the underwear, and the girl is good to go. So she has an
Wow.
opportunity to add more. If the floor is heavy, she has the opportunity to add more parts. That's why they requested for more. In the beginning, we were giving them 5 parts, but when we asked them about feedback, they say this 5 is not enough because we have to keep them and wash them. So we added the kit to have 10 parts and 2 wings, as you can see. So our donors, this is how we spend the money for these reusable sanitary pads, and they have really helped many girls to keep them stay in school throughout the year. It has prevented some kind of truancy and absenteeism. We appreciate your support. Please keep on supporting us and help us help our children strive. Thank you.
Wow, that is ingenious. Wow. Thank you so much for I was struggling last week. John, I see what you did there. You made sure that Oliver had the kit there ready so that I could see.
Not my idea,
No.
but I'm glad
Well,
she had it. Thank you, Oliver. It was very helpful.
yes, that was perfect. Thank you so much. Well, listen, unfortunately, it is time for us to bring it to a close, but I just want to say to John, Oliver, and Petro, thank you so much once again for being my guest here on the 37th episode of the Leaders Lab podcast. And like I said to you all before, you can look at the link, visit the link in the show notes or the description box below so that you can connect with Kesho Fund and be a part of this great initiative. You see that it is something that is not just for fun. It's fun and helping, but it's not just for fun. They're supplying and providing everyday needs. Some of the things that we take for granted that we have at our disposal. Just they are providing necessities that you want to be a part of. So make sure you check the link in the bio and also connect with them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Kesho Fund. And you can visit their website, keshofund.org. And don't forget that you can connect with me right on YouTube if you're watching, /Dr. Charity TV, everywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, at Dr. Charity TV. And I will see you guys next week in the lab.
Thank you for listening to the Leaders Lab podcast. Visit our website at www.drcharitytv.com.